Alrighty, welcome folks. Glad to see you all are joining us for today's Introduction to Linked Learning webinar. Hopefully you all were enjoying our tunes. Thank you, Maya, for playing those for us, and hopefully everyone's having a great day. If you haven't already, please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. We'd love to hear a little bit about who's in the Zoom room with us. So be your name, any organization or school that you're affiliated with, and your role. So please go ahead and introduce yourselves. I see some folks have already gotten us started on that chain, so thank you for that. And I think we can go to the next slide, Maya, whenever you are ready. Alrighty, so I'm just gonna go ahead and kick us off, everyone, with a round of introductions. My name is Hernan Gallo. I am the Manager of External Relations at the Linked Learning Alliance. And I'm also a Linked Learning alum. So I myself participated in and graduated from a Linked Learning pathway in East Oakland, California. So I studied all about health, had a really positive experience, and had an amazing trajectory for me in my post-secondary experience. So I really loved it. And now I'm working at the Alliance. And we are essentially a nonprofit organization, and we are the engine and connective tissue for the linked learning movement. And we heavily believe in the power in the and, or the power of plus. When we combine college and career preparation, we're putting every student in a position to succeed after high school. And so that's really at the core of what we believe in. And we do this through 4 key levers, which is through rigor and improvement in the linked learning practice, research that establishes evidence and informs learning, communications that enhances public understanding, and lastly, policy and resources required for success. So we're really excited that linked learning has grown over the years into over 80 school districts at this point, and hopefully you all will get to get a lot out of today's session. So with that, I'd love to introduce some of my colleagues that are joining us here today. I'll kick it off with Robert, who's our Senior Director of Networks and Practice Development. So Robert, go ahead and give a quick intro.
Thanks, Hernan. Welcome, everybody. I'm Robert Curtis. I'm the Senior Director for Practice and Networks, and just glad to be here today and looking forward to the conversation we're going to have. And Dan, you want to go next?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Dan Storrs. I'm Senior Director for K-12 engagement and lead the certification work here at the Alliance.
Okay, great. And I'm Cindy Bader, and I'm the Senior Director of Partner Engagement here at the Alliance, and happy to be here today with you all. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you all for leading a quick introduction. All right. So these are some of our amazing presenters that you'll get to hear from later today. So I won't jump into a deep introduction, but we do have Ramon Sanchez, Renee Shipman, and Carrie Wiley joining us, who will be leading some sessions later. Next slide. And in terms of general housekeeping for today's webinar, I really encourage everyone to use the chat function. So use this to ask questions of our speakers, engage with one another, share your comments and ideas, and also please aim to stay muted if you're not speaking. If you're having any trouble with internet connection or anything Zoom related, you can try to dial in by phone. And if that still doesn't work, feel free to message me directly over the Zoom, and I'm happy to support throughout today's session. So thank you. And next, I would love to talk about our essential questions that we are covering. So we'll be talking about what is linked learning, why do communities leverage this approach to college and career preparation, what does it look like in practice, and how do I get started with linked learning as well. So we'll get to dive into these through some of the sessions. This is our high-level agenda for the day. We'll give a brief welcome as we are doing now. We'll talk about the linked learning approach. We'll talk about integrated pathways, how it works at the district level in terms of district systems and equity. We'll have some time for reflections and some incredible resources that we'll share with you all. And lastly, we'll have some time for you all to ask questions of all of our presenters and sort of have an open Q&A session before we close out at 5:15 Pacific. And next, I would like to ask everyone to participate in some live polls. So we'll be using Slido throughout today's webinar to have some opportunities for engagement. So I invite everyone to either scan the QR code with your phone, or you can visit slido.com and enter the tag link learning to participate in this question. And so the first one is, how familiar are you with the linked learning approach? So would love for folks to respond. A 1 means it's completely new to me, I've never heard of it. A 3 is like, maybe I'm somewhat familiar. And 5, like, I am an expert in linked learning. I know everything there is to know. So if you visit slido.com and just use the tag link learning, that should take you right to our poll. And you can leave this open throughout the webinar. It'll automatically move along with our poll questions throughout today's webinar. Okay, I see some responses coming in. I see lots of 1s. So a lot of folks are very new. It's great. Hopefully we can get that up to a 4 or 5 by the end of today's linked learning webinar. We'll see. We'll find out. All right. Thank you all so much for participating in this poll. As I mentioned, we'll be having a few of these, so please leave it open on your phone or browser as we go along. And I think we can go ahead to the next slide. I am happy to introduce a linked learning alum, Marlon De Silva, who graduated from Hollywood High School in 2016. And we're essentially hoping that we can hear a bit more from him about his experience with linked learning. He's now an assistant editor at NBC Universal. And so we'll get to hear from his experience. So we'll play this brief video clip and then we'll do a bit of reflection and dive deeper into linked learning after that.
It's my pleasure. Hi, everyone. My name is Marlon De Silva. And ever since I was 8 years old, I've always had a dream of being part of the film industry, and especially one day to attend the Academy Awards, as I've lived literally in the heart of Hollywood all of my life, 24 years. And my first love was editing, as I took all of our family memories and put the puzzle pieces together in Windows Movie Maker. And I showed them to my family and friends, and it made me realize how I had the power and the tools to create stories using the impact and medium of filmmaking. My parents were both born and raised in Sri Lanka. I was married here in the US, and they had me, their only child. And coming from a working class immigrant family, my parents were very supportive of me, but they couldn't provide the resources I needed to succeed in this industry. From elementary to middle school, I was just looking up YouTube videos and trying to learn from there and use what I had. But when I got accepted to Hollywood High School's New Media Academy and being part of their film production pathway, that changed everything. My coursework for the last 4 years, or for the 4 years of being at Hollywood High School, was combined with my passion for film production, writing, directing, and editing, and it was heavily mixed with my academic curriculum. A lot of the time we would work on semester-long projects that took what we were learning from our history, English, and math classes and apply them to creating PSAs, short documentaries, and even writing and directing a few narrative short films. I was learning what it meant to be a filmmaker and get college-level training while I was in high school. There did come a point during my junior year that getting into the industry as a career was starting to become a concern for my family, but also for myself. But one of the things I learned during my time in New Media Academy that I found very crucial and beneficial, especially when being in the industry, was learning how to network. So I used it to the best at an event during my junior year of high school, as I was invited through one of my teachers at New Media Academy. And I went to a filmmaker and I told him I was scared about getting into the industry. And he took the time to tell me in detail to do internships, because it was not only going to help me gain experience, build my resume, but also put my foot in the door. And 3 days later, he won his Academy Award. And a few months later, with the help of one of the lead teachers in my program at New Media Academy, I made my first resume that consisted of 3 years of school projects and volunteer work. And I was an intern on the Fox studio lot before my senior year of high school at age 17.
Awesome. I always love hearing from Marlon and his story and experience with linked learning as a linked learning alum myself. And so for this next portion, thank you, Maya. I would love to ask everyone to participate in another brief Slido poll and answer the question, what stood out to you about Marlon's experience as a linked learning student and alum? So it could be in one short phrase or one word. Just go ahead and type it in, and it should allow you to submit multiple responses as well if you have more than one idea. And for folks that are just joining us, we are on slido.com. and you can enter the code Link Learning to participate in our live polls, or you can scan the QR code with your phone. Yeah, I see some network, passion, connection, experience. We're sort of creating a word cloud together of all of our responses. So I see, ooh, connection just bubbled up to the top. Network, networking, pathways, industry, yes, commitment. Awesome, yes. Great, thank you all so much. Yes, I definitely feel the network and passion. Marlon was able to connect his passion for media and filmmaking to the classroom and outside the classroom and get connected to a career that he was really interested in. All right, thank you all so much for participating in this word cloud. Really appreciate it. So with that, I would love to let the word cloud grow and you all can continue to submit, but I'll go ahead and pass it over to Robert Curtis again, who will actually dive deeper into the linked learning approach with us. So Robert, go ahead and take it away.
All right, thanks, Hernan. And I know we had some folks join late. If you joined late, please introduce yourself in the chat. Just put your name and where you're from. Love to kind of see who else is in the room. So again, I'm Robert Curtis, Director for Practice and Networks, and we're going to talk about the linked learning approach for a moment. So linked learning is an evidence-based approach to transform education that disrupts inequitable practices that deepen disparities by forcing students to choose between college or career. So linked learning very intentionally integrates 4 components, which you can see on the screen here. The first is rigorous academics. So these are in California A to G, but they're aligned to admission requirements for state colleges and universities. These include things like AP classes as well as early college credit. It also includes integration of career technical education, delivering concrete knowledge and skills. They're a carefully structured sequence of courses that students take as part of their program of study. It includes a continuum of work-based learning, providing students with exposure to real-world work places through job shadowing, apprenticeships, internships, and more, and directly connecting that back to what they're doing in their classes, both their academic and their CTE classes. And then lastly, comprehensive student support services, including college career counseling, mental and behavioral supports, social emotional learning, as well as supplemental instruction, reading, writing, math to address individual needs. And I know a lot of folks are probably like, yeah, we do that, and we hear that a lot, but I think what linked learning does is really bring these things together, where these things are often happening in siloed opportunities for some kids some of the time. So every element is critical. Each one of these reinforces and strengthens the other elements. So linked learning is delivered through, as I said, an integrated CTE and academic pathway connected to a high-wage, high-growth industry sector. The secret sauce of linked learning compared to just traditional career technical education or pathways is the integration of the core academics and the CTE with these other elements. It's college and career, not as Renan said earlier, it's the plus, and it's the focus on the and. So linked learning also provides a coherent framework for bringing together your existing college and career readiness efforts and expanding and improving them to ensure equitable outcomes and opportunities for all the students within a supportive, collaborative structure of a pathway or academy. And you'll hear more about that structure because I think it really is about changing the experience the students have in high school, and I think you'll hear from some of our presenters later about how we create that and the importance of rethinking how we work together as adults in the schools. Okay, next slide. So the linked learning, the adoption and expansion of the approach over the past decade was supported by a body of research that shows that linked learning makes a difference and has a positive impact on young people. Renan's going to post the SRA results in a chat. We also have a Google folder that has all the materials we'll be referencing today you'll be able to look at. So we'll post that in for folks that came late into the box, and we'll send this out after the webinar as well. So SRI's research found that when compared with similar peers in traditional high school programs, students in high-quality linked learning pathways earn more credits towards high school graduation, they complete more college preparatory courses, and they're less likely to drop out of high school and more likely to graduate within 4 years. And these effects are most pronounced for students who start high school behind academically and students of color. And the results are directly tied to high quality, coherent implementation of those 4 components. So we really only saw the impact when we really had those 4 components all working at a level of quality for the students. All right, and this is our pathway development process, and we'll be sharing a number of resources throughout the webinar. And I think Renan is posting right now our pathway guide. So the pathway guide includes the pathway development process, which outlines how to get started with linked learning. It provides a vision and concrete steps to design and implement high-quality college career pathways using the linked learning approach. It covers the foundational structure and systems that you need to develop, and it's all connected to our linked learning standards and certification process, which Dan is going to talk a little bit more about next. So Dan, I think I'll hand this over to you to talk about the standards.
All right, thanks, Robert. The linked learning standards for high quality pathways were developed in partnership with a diverse group of experienced pathway educators and based on the research that identified practices leading to better and more equitable student outcomes that Robert just referred to. And Hernan is, I think, putting a link in the chat to the standards for all of you. These standards underpin all of the work we do with the purpose of supporting educators in pathway implementation and encouraging continuous growth and improvement. Two sequential iterations of the standards, silver and gold, provide a pathway design and implementation framework and benchmarks for self-evaluation and continuous improvement. The first, the silver standards, focus on the structures and practices needed to build a high-quality pathway program, and the gold standards focus on high-quality implementation of an integrated student-centered learning experience with equity-focused student supports, inclusion of community partners, and career learning experiences for all students that are tied to a defined set of student outcomes, such as a graduate profile. The linked learning standards are organized into three strands. The integrated program of study, which encompasses core and CTE academics, work-based learning, which addresses career learning experiences and industry partnerships, and integrated student supports, ensuring equitable access and opportunity for all students. Elements of the three strands work in concert to achieve student outcomes focused on equity, college and career readiness, and healthy community-minded young adults, all informed by student and pathway data. I'm going to focus first on the integrated program of study. The integrated program of study is the foundation of your pathway or academy. At a high level, it's about creating a culture of cross-subject, student-centered learning that fuses college and career preparation. It begins with a rigorous college prep curriculum that prepares students to succeed in college and gives them the required coursework for college eligibility. So for example, in California, that means meeting the A through G requirements so that all successful pathway students meet the requirements to attend a CSU or a UC. And that there's attention to providing the supports needed for all students to be successful. There's an emphasis on project-based interdisciplinary curriculum with real-world applications tied to work-based learning opportunities. And there's a lot there, and you need to assess where you are and build on your strengths. So for example, if you do project-based learning and you've had maybe a district-wide or school-wide initiative to get training around project-based learning, then that's a great place to lean into for building your program. And the use of performance assessments through methods that include presentations and completion of a culminating project so that assessments are an authentic learning experience for students. Another component is early college credit opportunities that are tied to the pathway theme and accessible to all students in the pathway. And those early college credit opportunities include AP, IB, and most importantly, dual enrollment that allow kids to see themselves as college students and build confidence and an academic foundation, better preparing them for later success. It also includes post-secondary and industry partners who inform the design of the program of study to ensure that the career learning integration is authentic and based on industry standards. And finally, that there are student learning cohorts that provide common integrated learning experiences for students and collaboration time for teachers. Next, we're going to show you an example of what one looks like. This is a program of study from STEM Hollywood, a gold certified pathway in Los Angeles Unified School District. And there are others, examples in your folder. There isn't one way that a program of study has to look or be designed, but this is a good example of all the components that go into a program of study. And you'll see in a good program of study, in a well thought out program of study, you'll see the work-based learning elements, you'll see where your industry partners fit in, and you'll see where the early college credit opportunities are and how it all kind of fits together in the student experience. And again, there are other examples in your resource folder for you to look at. And now I'm going to turn it to my colleague, Cindy Bader, for the next segment.
Great, thank you, Dan. So, work-based learning is a critical part of a high-quality pathway experience. It's not a nice to have, but it's rather an integral part of the student learning and the integrated into the academic core as well as the CTE. In a linked learning pathway, teachers work together in conjunction with their industry partners to develop a cohesive work-based learning plan that is informed by input from the industry partners and tied to that program of study. Students successfully complete multiple career experiences that have connections for their career and academic learning. And the students have access to formal work-based learning experiences through internships and apprenticeships. They get industry feedback with support that is needed to be successful in those experiences. And the next slide. So a work-based learning plan maps out how and when students are getting the continuum of work-based learning experiences from career awareness to exploration and preparation. It helps teachers develop and plan and helps students and families understand and track their progress. So on the screen here, you see a work-based learning continuum, and I'm sure many of you have seen something similar or this exact one. But it lays out the experiences, adding complexity from career awareness to career exploration to preparation and to training. And you can see that it also gives some common descriptions. What is a career awareness? What is career exploration? And then there are examples of student learning outcomes as a result of those experiences and how it's connected to both post-secondary college preparation and career interest. Note that the arrows begin and continue throughout. The experiences can continue from one to the other. It's not like they don't do career awareness and then stop. That arrow comes all the way through. And it's really sort of cyclical at every level, at every experience. And sometimes some people think this is fixed to a grade level. It's not. These are just the progression through the continuum. And partnerships play a key role in this work-based learning plan, not only providing work-based learning experiences, but also in designing the kind of experiences students should have. They work with teachers to develop authentic projects that connect to the students' learning and skill development. And partners also provide professional feedback and help to build the students' social capital and their network. So on the next slide, there's an example of how one school in Long Beach used this continuum to build out their pathway plan. There is a brief description followed by the student learning outcomes. And you notice how the outcomes increase in complexity from something in understanding during the career awareness up to demonstrating at the final level. And then the work-based learning experiences that the students will have is listed next. And notice how some will span all four categories. Example, under the work-based learning, it has law day. And in the very beginning, the students would be an interviewer. And then that would build a complexity where at the next level, they would be interviewers. And at the next level, they would be part of the management. And so it can be the exact same experience, but over time and through the processes, it becomes a more complex experience. And then this plan is followed by career readiness skills that they will learn and the connections between post-secondary and their careers. And so, as I've mentioned, the work-based learning plan needs to be developed and carried out by all teachers in the pathway and supported by their industry partnerships. So now I'm going to turn it back to Robert to talk about student supports.
Great, thanks, Cindy. So in terms of integrated student supports, as part of a pathway, students should feel known and supported by a team that includes their teachers, counselors, administrators, their peers, and the broader community. Kind of key components of this is having things like an orientation to set clear expectations for students and their families, that students should experience learning that emphasizes healthy social emotional learning and life skills that are incorporated throughout the curriculum and courses. Teachers and counselors have a system to monitor and support students in a culturally responsive and timely way. And the students receive guidance from a post-secondary and career as part of their pathway program. So I think part of this with the integrated student supports is also how the adults work differently in a pathway. So we have a short video here that I think kind of highlights that from Long Beach, and you'll see one familiar face who will be showing up a little bit later during this webinar. So why don't we show the video here, and then we'll do a short Slido after.
So one of our goals as a pathway team, as a triad, and as all the teachers, our goal throughout the pathway was to build our school community and connectedness.
And I, as the lead teacher, was really that voice of the other teachers in our pathway.
My role as a counselor within the triad really focused on student support, academically, social emotionally, and making sure that students were college and career ready.
Site administrator for LPS. My role was really to think about how to support all of the teaching staff as well as the students and families to make sure that their needs were met both inside the classroom as well as outside of the classroom, whether it was community engagement, extracurricular activities. My role also really focused on building the capacity of my team, my site teaching team, as well as my counselor and lead teacher, to make sure that we were all working together for a common goal, which is to prepare students for college and career.
All right, so that kind of highlights one model of leadership that Long Beach incorporated, where it was called a triad model, where the counselor, teacher, and administrator were the lead for the pathway program and worked together to really ensure the students received the support they needed as part of the pathway. So we're gonna do another quick Slido here. So we've kind of shared a lot with you, and would love to just kind of see what's kind of sticking or resonating with you. So based on what you've seen so far, what would you like students or adults to experience that's different from what that currently exists in your current system or school? So what is something you would like to grow or see that's different than what's currently there? Maybe something you heard in one of the pieces so far, either from the students or from Dan or Cindy. So we'll just take a minute. What's something you would like to see that to grow in your system for students or adults that doesn't currently exist, or doesn't exist to the extent you'd like to see it? Mentorship, yep. And again, just type in slido.com and then pound link learning to be able to access that for anyone that joined late. Capacity, career opportunities, integrated projects, yep. Work-based learning activities, industry partnerships, great. Mentorship, industry partnerships, great. All right, well, I think you'll hear more about some of these during some of our presenters, and if you have some questions that are coming up, feel free to put those questions in the chat, and during the panel discussion at the end, we'll address as many of those as we can. So I'm going to turn this back over to Dan, I believe.
Thanks, Robert. I'm going to talk a little bit about our certification, because pathways or academies engage in the certification process as a strategy for continuous improvement. It provides independent evaluation and feedback at critical stages of development, and it helps build community awareness, recognition, and support for the work you're doing and the outcomes you're achieving. The 2 levels of certification each mark important milestones on and correlate directly to the standards. Silver certification is a benchmark for successful implementation of foundational structures and practices necessary for high quality outcomes. And gold certification represents the highest level of quality pathway implementation with a focus on successful student outcomes. To experience a gold pathway is to see a strong community culture with deeply embedded cross-curricular industry-infused learning experiences and industry partnerships and comprehensive academic and social emotional supports. What I'd like to do is, if we can go to the next slide, is I'm going to show you a short little video, and this is Karen Coffey. She's a pathway lead for a Link Learning Gold Biomedical Sciences Academy at Eastside High School in Lancaster. And Karen is a founder of the Academy, and she's just an inspirational educator. And she talks about how she has used the Link Learning Standards, she and her team have used the Link Learning Standards and certification to help build and guide their work.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to talk a little bit about our experience in going for gold. Our school district, Antelope Valley Union High School District, adopted Link Learning as the approach, and we were encouraged for all new CTE academies to use the approach as we were building our academies. Our Biomedical Science Academy at Eastside High School is currently in its 7th year. We started working with some of our Linked Learning coaches to go towards silver in the fall of 2017. When I first started the process, I was a little worried that it would be a check mark kind of system. And then as I was learning more about it, I realized how much it just made sense for our academy teachers and more importantly for the students of our academy, because ultimately for us, it's about our kids. Before our work for gold, we had a dedicated staff. So I'm blessed to work with a really great group of teachers, but our efforts were a bit scattered. The work towards silver allowed us to begin the process of identifying where we were doing really well and then also the areas that needed some help. The gold certification process gave us a framework and a safe way to grow and develop the academy that we were already so proud to be a part of. The student support piece of the Linked Learning approach is one of the areas that we definitely wanted to work on. Through our work in going for gold, we were able to drill down and systematize our process. We knew it was important for students in our academy to have supports that were beyond what every student on our campus was getting. So we were able to develop a process for weekly grade polls on a shared Google Sheet that we used to monitor cohorted students. And we were able to record notes of conversations with the students so that all the academy teachers for that student would be on the same page. This has led to some pretty interesting data, very useful data that will allow us to continually improve our process in that small section of student supports. We've always had a really excellent support from our site admin and our district admin. I realized quickly that though that support can't be given if we didn't know what we needed to ask for. So they were super helpful, but sometimes I couldn't remember or couldn't think of what we needed help with. So we were having some difficulty in implementing work-based learning internship opportunities for our students, which was kind of revealed during the process of our reviews as we were working toward gold. We brought our admin into the conversation and we were able to ask for help with this. And then they worked with us to think outside the box and develop, ultimately they helped us to develop a sports med program for our students so that they could have work-based learning experiences on our campus. And then they also helped us to hook up with a school nurse to offer internship opportunities through the health office at our school. The Linked Learning group modeled how important student supports can be in the process of the site visit. So through their work with us, they actually supported our team. And so instead of trying to keep our problem areas a secret, we were encouraged to be transparent with our lead evaluator and the Linked Learning team so that they could help us find resolutions and move toward a positive outcome for both the staff and students. This was really one of the things that I found so refreshing about the process. Oftentimes, you know, we try to sweep things under the rug and just get through that site visit. But this one, when we did the site visit, at that point, I felt so proud and I'm just really excited about what I was going to show off because anything that was a problem was revealed in the time before. At the end of the day, the process brought our whole school and community together. Our students and their families, all of the academy cohort teachers and our industry partners really felt like together we had accomplished something pretty big, and it's motivated us to keep taking the next steps. Our kids are really worth it, and so I'm super excited about being a part of this process. Thank you.
So I love that. She's just really, like I said, inspirational. And I think you can get a sense from her there that she's just kind of thinking a mile a minute about things and always presenting new ideas. I just heard from her this morning because she didn't know we were going to do this today, where she was throwing out an idea of something we should do that would be good for the community and for the field. So next, we're going to go to another person who is really an inspiration, and that is Ramon Sanchez, who is the Academy lead for the Dinuba Construction Management Academy. And I've known Ramon for a number of years now, and he's set the vision and led the Dinuba team over a number of years to build a high quality college and career experience for their students in Dinuba. And it culminated last year in their achieving gold certification. They're the first construction management academy and the first pathway in the region, in the Central Valley, to achieve it. And also, I think, probably one of the smallest, if not the smallest, school district. So a very kind of different environment from a lot of the pathways. So really proud to have Ramon here with us. So Ramon, why don't you take it away?
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ramon Sanchez, and again, I'm the lead teacher for the Construction Management Academy here at Dinuba High School, where we're now going on our 7th year. And I've only been part of the Academy for the past 5 years, actually. But want to give you guys some context of kind of where Dinuba is at. We're in the Central Valley of California. We're about a good 50-minute drive southeast of Fresno State. Just to give you some context there, the town is, 26,000 in population, smaller town. We can go through the whole town in 2.5 miles, through Main Street and the little crossing street that we call Alta, and you're kind of through the town. And then the next one will probably give you a better picture of how small the town is. So there we go with our kind of City of Dinuba Together a Better Community. And to the right, you kind of see the demographics of the town itself. Lower the 88%, lower than state average. So that's where we're at in Dinuba. And the next slide will talk a little bit more about the high school in general. We're at 2,000 population for our student body. You can kind of see the different sizes for our grade levels, and definitely from female to male. Predominantly Hispanic at 92%. And definitely on the bottom left there, you see 81% or almost 82% socioeconomically disadvantaged students and English learners. And even in our area, we're starting to see more Arabic students coming in as well. So that's Dinuba Emperors as well. So, and then here's some more demographics to the academy itself. We're at 215 students. We kind of explain the demographics to our female students that this is very, very typical of the career itself, but we let them know that because you're in this field or you're interested in it, there are so many doors that could open for you because of the female population is low in the construction industry. And very similar to the high school, we're at 93% Hispanic students. This year is our largest enrollment. It's been a while before we have gotten to 3 freshman classes for our CTE side, and that's a growing pain for us, and I'll talk more about our growing pains, but our first year with 3 different CTE freshman classes, which then makes it easier to cohort during our core classes of math and English. So instead of having smaller core classes, we now have an average 34 to 35 students. So on the next slide, I'll start showing you guys kind of our size of the team that we have here at Dinuba High School. We call them our school leadership teams, where we have they're the group that really creates policy for our schools and the high school itself as well. Then we have department chairs and definitely even our PLCs with all our core classes. We do have an ELA coach and math coach, and here you see our specialties. We have 2 academies on campus, Med Academy and the construction management. Also Skills USA, we're fairly big on Skills USA here. And so this is just a quick, at least as much as I can, to let you see how Dinuba High School, how big Dinuba High School is, and when it comes to supports for our students. And on the next slide, this is my team right here. This is the last year during our senior celebration, where you could see the 3 gentlemen there, the handsome gentlemen that you guys see there. Those are the CTE sectors, okay, where construction management 1, 2, 3, and 4. The 2 ladies on the center, with the one with the gray shirt and the jacket, those are English. And it makes it easier because one teaches freshman and junior, and then the other one teaches sophomore and senior. Then the lady to the left, Manjeet Dale, the one with the skirt, she's our college and career director. She manages not only the high school, but district level. And next to her is Jolene Willis, who was our work-based learning coordinator. She is no longer with us, but she was definitely a driving force to grow the team. But 2 people that we don't see here are our 3rd cohort, or our 3rd core subject, which is math, which we added this year, and our dedicated academy counselor. And again, those are some of the growing pains that we had. But the next slide. Here is a picture of our advisory board that is also outside our cafeteria for our mentor breakfast. And here we have a few extra people, but typically out of the folks that you see here, 7 of those attend our advisory boards that we have at least 2 per semester. So that's an easy connection with them, and they obviously are connected in other ways that we are not, but it's easy to just reach out for them to, hey, we're looking for a site to visit. We're looking for a guest speaker. Are you available to judge some presentations of some sort for the students? So that's our advisory board. The next slide will show us our program of study. One thing that works really well for us are dual enrollment. Our students have the potential, or have the doors open for them to receive up to 13 college credits just on the CTE side, okay? Not including calculus or English 1A, which our seniors this year will have that because our English 12 teacher has now been approved by our local college, Reedley College, to be dual enrolled with English 1A on California side. So our CMA students definitely get some safety for dual enrollment. They get intro to architecture and environmental design and materials of construction their junior year. And because of our capstone project, their senior year, they get 6 units in their construction 50A and 50B, which is mainly residential construction. And then obviously here you can see our core subjects, English, where we have our PBLs, project-based learning. And we could go to the next slide. Here again is a quick view of all the activities that we do with our students. PBLs, freshman year is getting real about careers. And here's kind of that growth. Not in my backyard. That was not something that we liked what we were seeing from our students. So we decided to switch it this year to affordable housing. which kind of goes into a different avenue of looking at homelessness. That was our intent with Not in My Backyard. And then with all the California wildfires in the architecture class, which is their junior year when I see them, is We're on Fire, talking about how material can be used to suppress or have a house or structure still standing after the wildfire. And then their senior year is My Future Path. How does that look like after your 3 years here? What is your path after high school? What does that look like? And we go into detail with them on how that looks, and industry partners and advisory board members grade their presentation. And we actually have a success story with that. One student was in the Construction Management Academy, did not choose to go into construction. He was going into criminal justice. And the person that he presented to was a safety manager for a construction management firm, and they knew a sheriff, and they partnered that sheriff with the students. So that was one success story for our PBL in our 12th grade class about 2 years ago, and they still keep in contact with him. So also get OSHA 10 certified, and this year we're looking into getting them OSHA 30 in construction certified as well. We have job shadows, and we'll look into the next slide that kind of starts talking about job shadows here. So here are some events that we do for our 9th grade. Our biggest one is our mentor breakfast, which is right after they're getting real about careers, where they do some research and guest speaking in their English class to kind of investigate what is a career in the construction, architecture, or engineering industry. And they get to create some presentations about their career of their choice. And they do some cost of living based on the salary that they might be making in that career, and how long it would take to get into that career. And then the capstone to that freshman year is we have a breakfast with specific mentors that target that career and have a one-on-one conversation with a group of students that selected a career. So we've seen electrical, plumbing, trusses, engineering, architecture, interior design, just to kind of give you, even real estate. So it's a big spectrum when it comes to what I call the ACE industry, the architecture, construction, and engineering. And then for the next slide, which is our sophomore year, we talked about shed constructions and the dual enrollment with Intro to Architecture Environmental Design. The shed construction was leaning towards the Not in My Backyard, but we're also teaching them about parts to a wall or components to residential construction. We have community service events here at the Dinuba. We have 2 carnivals that occur. And so that becomes part of our community service. And we also have a job shadow day with them, where the city of Dinuba actually partners with us pretty well. And then the next slide talks about our junior year, some more job shadows, presentations about We're on Fire. And the juniors actually had an opportunity that was offered to us with the city of Dinuba to design a pavilion where those 2 carnivals happen, to create a closer to 3,000 square feet pavilion that they wanted to design, and the students did that. And here we have some students following the city inspector on a nearby development. And then our senior, which is next slide, is our capstone project. First, they talk about their future path in their first semester. And then at the end, throughout the school year, they built a 1,200 square foot house that was designed their junior year in my class. And there's only 3 things that the students do not do. They don't install the air conditioning or the HVAC. They don't do the fire sprinklers because that requires a specific license. And last, it takes some skill to do what's called mud and texture or finishing the drywall. So those are the only 3 things that the students do not do, but everything that you see the students do, except those 3 trades. And so that's our capstone project. And the way it worked with the school district, they allocated funds specifically for the house. And it was an upfront cost, but at the sale of this project or this house, it goes back into the same pocket to rebuild the next school year. So it's just an upfront cost, but it's a repeat for each year. And we're actually going to go into our third house this year. And then I think the next slide, I want to talk about kind of the team and how we got to this. It was a lot of growing pains. It was not where we are now. Was talk to me 5 years ago, I would have been like, what did I just do? Because I came from industry. And when I was in meetings with the team, I literally said, what did I just do? First, we were having personality issues with the math department, because that was our first core subject. And in the department of math, why does the academy teacher have a class of 25 when I have a class of 35? And part of that because we were still growing and we did not have enough numbers in the academy. Two, our CTE classes, because of safety with power tools and hand tools and sharp objects, we're limited to 25 students. So when you have 50 students, two separate classes that are at capacity, but the core class has one of 22 and the other one of 27. So we had that challenge. The other challenge is our math levels or our math scores. Students, we would struggle to cohort students from math 1 to math 2. So we couldn't, we were forcing that, round peg into a square type of thing, we're forcing that. And so eventually we decided we cannot sustain the academy with math. So we moved away from that. Then we added English. And since we added English, things have just naturally meshed together. The team is fantastic. We constantly get together weekly to discuss events for our academy and, adjustments. We now have a dedicated academy counselor, and that was strictly because of the report that we received, the feedback report from our site visit. And that site visit for Getting Gold really pushed the administration to basically say, okay, we will now give you a dedicated academy counselor. And now we are also adding the core subject of math. And so we're reintroducing math now that we have established ourselves and we know where it's going to go. And so that's kind of Dinuba High School Construction Management Academy. And I just, want to thank everybody for hearing the story for Dinuba at Construction Management Academy. Thank you.
All right, Ramon, thank you so much for that. And folks, feel free to put any questions you might have for Ramon in the chat, and we'll have some time at the end here with our panel to dive into the questions. So again, thank you, Ramon. And the story Ramon shared there, it's not just what changes for the students, but what changes also for the adults. So in terms of how we approach our work, how we work together across kind of typical silos. And that doesn't happen without support from site leaders and district leaders. So we want to talk a little bit next about the conditions and structures at the district level that are needed to kind of support this work. So let's go to the next slide. So in your folder, there is a district framework that talks a little bit about the systems and structures that really are critical to making this kind of work happen as Ramon described it. And it's different in every community. So you heard from Dinuba, which is a very small community. Next, you'll hear from our colleagues at Long Beach. So for linked learning to be equitable and impactful, it requires an inclusive, community-driven approach, and also these supportive systems and structures that Ramon alluded to, and you'll hear more. A couple of things that we consider is how do we develop a shared and aligned vision. So this is really critical for the district and community to support. that really articulates our vision for college and career readiness and an equitable system of pathways. It's not about having one great program, but really how do we make sure that regardless of what pathway kids are in, they're getting a quality experience. The next is supportive systems and conditions. These are essential district and site structures, policies, and capacities needed to implement this. This can be things, everything from master scheduling to really how do we make sure that we have the support from counselors and they can be part of a pathway team and work-based learning coordinators. And finally, critically, as Cindy alluded to earlier, is engage partners. So community connections help create an integrated program of study that's based on the industry's theme, but that's aligned with our post-secondary, our industry partners and the community's values and goals and aspirations they have for their students. So you can look at that a little more later. I don't want to belabor it. I want to make sure to get to our next presenters. In my job, I feel like one of the best things I get to work with so many brilliant and equity-centered leaders. I want to introduce you to two remarkable Link Learning District leaders who've been doing this for a long time, and I always learn something new from them. First is Renee Shipman. She's the Assistant Director for Pathway Development at Long Beach Unified School District. You also saw her as an administrator in the previous video. And also Kerry Wiley, who's the Program Administrator for College and Career Readiness in Long Beach Unified School District. So thank you both so much for being here, and I'll turn this over to you.
All right, hi everybody, welcome. We can go to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about the context and just history of where we are in Long Beach to kind of set you up for talking about how it is we provide some of the systemic supports and kind of how we got to where we are, because it wasn't something that happened quickly or overnight. So a little bit about Long Beach, just to kind of set the stage when I'm talking about the history and reflection. We are, if you aren't familiar with Long Beach, we are a large urban district. We have about 68,000 students served, 22,000 high school students, and they are in 11 linked learning high schools. And I say linked learning high schools because in all of our general education programs, which is the majority of our system, we are wall-to-wall linked learning. So they're, wall-to-wall pathways and linked learning. So nobody is in a general education type of setting in Long Beach. Everybody is in a pathway program with a course of study and a cohorted experience, even in our large comprehensive settings. So that's just kind of a little bit about us. So our history and reflection, we've been at this work for over a decade. I'm gonna ballpark it at 12 to 13 years of like full implementation. And then there was grant writing before that. So there's quite a bit of history in this. And when we started, I just think it's really important when you're going to see a lot about our systems when you get to Renee's slides. And the context of that is really important of how we got there. We started at the teacher level. That's really important. We went straight to linked learning is at the classroom. It's for the kids. It's about engagement. It was about keeping our kids in our classes, really engaging them, getting them excited about post-secondary options, the full array. So we went straight to the teacher. We went straight to the classroom. We did a lot of professional development. Well, so we want to be really transparent about the lessons we learned through that. Some amazing things happened there. There were sparks of what we used to call the magic, right? Where teacher teams came together and did amazing things for kids. But we were implementing at a wall-to-wall level, all schools, all kids, all teachers. And so, you know, when you are on the forefront of something, you make some mistakes. So one of the things that we failed to understand with all the best intentions was the need for support with administrators and counselors. One of the things that we really learned early on is that you can set your teachers up for a really frustrating experience when you're trying to go system-wide. when you don't necessarily give them all of the conditions that they need to thrive in that setting, right? To really provide those opportunities for students. So somewhere along the way in the first couple years, we really realized, wow, we need to think about how we, at a much earlier time, bring all of our administrators, all of our counselors to the table. These are the folks that are scheduling students into their pathway courses of study. These are the folks that are supporting them in making decisions. And it becomes really important that they have a full breadth of that understanding of the pathway intention and approach to really create that condition for kids. And then we also kind of, in the same vein, underestimated the impact of district-wide systems or lack of district-wide systems. Master schedule, no matter what size high school you are at, can be a beast. I think that is the word I hear most commonly associated with the process of master scheduling. And when you think about all of the components, your athletics, your FTE, your contracts, just so many things that play into a master schedule setting, if you aren't really thinking about that, which we weren't initially, then you're also not necessarily setting up the conditions for thriving in a pathway setting. So those were our early learnings, and we had to really reflect and bring our team together over the last decade of time, because every time you implement something that you think gets it all done, you're like, oh, that was great, but now we need to do this, right? So as we iterated and reflected, how it's going now, right? We have built some systems and supports, and I'm going to share with you in a second before I hand it to Renee to really talk about what that support system looks like, to really address the conditions for linked learning pathways to thrive, and to bring in all of our stakeholders in the district that have a hand in the pot of linked learning, right? Which you maybe, at least for us, we discovered over time. We discovered over time all the hands that really needed to be in it to create a good and comprehensive system for our teams. We can go to the next slide. So these are some of the representative documents. I'm just going to briefly talk you through them so you can kind of see how this work, the work of building high quality pathways, has permeated our system and really wrapped around it in multiple ways. So the first document there, and these are all public facing, so we would be happy to provide links later. I'm going to just say that for Hernan if you want them to send out to the participants. But the first document there is our LBUSD equity policy that was finalized this year. I know many districts have been engaging in the work of equity, and we have as well. This policy really defines equity in LBUSD. It centers Black, Indigenous, people of color, and students with disabilities, and it sets the expectation out that all district efforts are in alignment with these goals and expectations. And that includes our linked learning efforts. So for us, linked learning has always been a lever for equity. It has always been intended to be something that helps us norm the experience of all of our students across all of our settings, regardless of site or region, that students are getting a high quality experience. And this equity policy that has been passed this year has really helped to codify those efforts and name them in a really meaningful way. So that's something that's come through our Board of Education. The second document is the strategic plan that was from 2017 to 2022. The current strategic planning process is happening, but we are anticipating that it'll look just the same. I mean, we're on those committees, but in the goals, it sets out that there will be improvement in the number of pathways that address the core components of linked learning. So that indicates gold standards, and that we will be increasing the number of our pathways that achieve those gold standards. So it's laid out right in our strategic plan. The third document there is our understandings and expectations for quality core instruction. So in here, we are able to align our linked learning efforts to what we define as quality core instruction and set it as an expectation for our system. And what that does is help to define that linked learning is part of the tier 1 intervention for students, that by providing the supports of a pathway, you are helping to address those issues and concerns that different students may have. So it really helps us to define that quality core instruction is synonymous with our pathway efforts. And then the last core document that has definitely permeated our system are the gold standards for linked learning certification. So these documents are well understood and known in our system and are continually revisited as part of the way that we wrap around the supports for those conditions for our teams. I'll hand it over to Renee. Oh no, there's going to be a Slido. That's right. I'm not going to hand it over yet. So the question that we are curious about here is, how is linked learning being used as a lever for equity or other district initiatives where you are?
And if you've already had the Slido poll pulled up, it should have automatically advanced to this question. For any new folks, you can visit slido.com and enter the linked learning code, or scan the QR code on the screen to participate. And you should be able to submit multiple responses as well.
Awesome. Absolutely bringing kids into the world of work. I love just starting. We've been there. We have been at just starting. Yep. Internship, work-based learning, high quality CT, absolutely. Changing culture. I hear that one too. Engagement. Awesome. Adult collaboration. Yes, it's a great lever for that as well. Ooh, and now they're going fast and getting small. It's kind of fun. All right. Well, you guys sound like you are well on your way. There's some great stuff here. Thank you for sharing.
All right, so we're gonna, you've heard where we've started, where we are now. So now we're gonna talk about some of the structures that we are using to support our schools and our system. So this graphic, I think, helps to illustrate the multiple layers of support that need to be in place in order to have high quality linked learning pathways and have a systemic approach. So you will see on the side there that we have two offices that support linked learning. We have our high school office, which is our level office, and then we have the career pathways office, which is housed in our curriculum and instruction department. And that dual position of linked learning in both spaces allows us to be levers for different parts of the work. So in my office, in the Career Pathways office, we focus on providing intentional supports at the site level, as well as the work of the central office supports. So you heard my colleagues in the video talk about the triad and how that model comes together. That is an innovative practice that we developed about 6 or 7 years into the work of linked learning. And it was in response to the needs that Carrie had talked about. We had a lot of teachers doing so much great work, but there were not the conditions at the site that allowed for that great work to be amplified and go to scale. So the work of the triad, which is the pathway administrator, the pathway counselor, the pathway lead teacher, and also we have a role called the pathway coordinator. And I see some of our coordinators are on this call, so I'm excited to see you. That team does the work of supporting the teachers, so the teachers can focus on instruction and support for students, and that triad team comes and wraps around our teachers to make sure the conditions are in place for them to advance their work. So that's how the system supports the school site. From the central office side, we're thinking about how do master schedules provide levers for linked learning practices? How can we support dual enrollment opportunities so that sites can embed it into their course of study? What kind of curriculum in our curricular offices needs to have a little bit more guidance on industry integration? And then what professional development supports do we need to provide to make sure that our high school teams are getting the services and support they need to implement at the site? So that is a systemic approach to our pathways. And then the flip side of that is our meeting structures, which is the next slide. So it feels like a lot of meetings when I see it on a flow chart like this, but all of these meetings are super important opportunities for collaboration. And that's how I think about meetings, or opportunities for collaboration. So again, you see that duality between central office collaboration spaces and school site collaboration spaces. So what I think is so amazing about our district is that our superintendent and our assistant superintendents are thinking about ways to support linked learning as a high school reform strategy for all of our students. And they have opportunities to do collaborative work around pathways and linked learning and quality core instruction in a space that is dedicated for that purpose. And I don't know if that happens everywhere, but I'm grateful that it happens in our district. So we have that level of collaboration. Then we have collaboration between high school office and our office. And then the third level of central office collaboration is the professional development opportunities that we provide for our principals, assistant principals, pathway coordinators, counselors. We are coaching and coming into their meetings to provide support around linked learning. And then we're also coming in and doing one-on-one just-in-time coaching for our counselors and pathway coordinators and other staff. So that's how central office works the collaboration space. And then at the school site, there's another layer of support. So you heard the words triads, that's our leadership teams. Those triads, we often have 4 to 5 pathways at a comprehensive school. And so each of those pathways has a leadership team. All of those leadership teams come together once a month and collaborate. From there are meetings within the pathways to provide additional structure. And then that pathway goes down to the grade level, where the grade level teacher teams are coming together, thinking about student supports, thinking about integrated curriculum, thinking about things that are happening in their class, other social emotional opportunities for students. So there's layers of structure around collaboration, because we know that that is the proof point for implementation. Everyone needs to be on the same page. Everyone needs to understand the purpose, and that's the way that we do it. So can we go to the next slide, please? So I see I need to close, so I'm going to close. When we have all of these pieces in place, we are ready to support our teams in certification. So what that looks like for us is, I think you heard Karen talk about how it's a continuing learning environment for pathway teams, and that's the approach that we're using in Long Beach. It is something that you work towards. It is a model of growth, and so you work towards a certification as you are ready to engage in it. We also know that certified pathways have higher outcomes for students and can really change student outcomes for families. And so we want to make sure that we're providing the structures and supports for our students and our teachers, so that everyone is able to engage in a high quality learning opportunity. And we would think that that would be in a linked learning certified pathway. So this is something that we continue to engage in, we continue to think about, and when our pathway teams are ready to engage in a certification process, whether it is going from candidate to silver or silver to gold, our team comes alongside and provides feedback and support through the process so that we know our teams are ready to engage in a positive experience around certification. So we have a final Slido. And I know I've talked very quickly, but if you can think about one way or how could certifications support your work and your school sites around high quality pathways, that is going to be my closing question for you. So thank you. I'm seeing some of my favorite words: equity, collaboration, empowerment. These are all really exciting. So I think I'm going to turn it over to the Alliance team. Thank you for engaging with me, and I'll close it there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Renee and Carrie, for that wonderful presentation. Always great to hear from you all. And major shout out to all of our presenters, including Ramon Sanchez from Dinuba. I am going to just walk us through a couple of resources that are available to you all. And then we'll have some time for open Q&A. So if you haven't already, please drop in any questions in the chat. We'll have opportunities to ask everyone. We'll spend some time before we close out at 5:15. So in terms of resources, we have a couple of different things to show you all. We have some getting started guides. These are all in the participant resources folder that we shared with you all earlier. I can drop that into the chat in just a second as well again. But just like has in-depth resources and guides around how to get started with linked learning from zero all the way to the end. So feel free to check those out. They're also available on our website. In addition to these, we also have a couple of events and professional learning opportunities available for linked learning. These are some of the ones that are coming up. Our master scheduling workshop sessions, unfortunately, sold out and closed. This one is in person. And I also just found out that we're essentially basically closed for the experiential site visits in Los Angeles as well at this point. If you are interested though, please reach out to us and we can put you on a sort of a wait list and let you know if any slots open up. And lastly is our Linked Learning Conference. So this is a very exciting opportunity where we'll be having a major conference and gathering of educators and leaders in the linked learning field, policymakers, students, etc. In February. So registration for that will be opening up next week. And so we invite anyone and everyone to register and participate. We'll also have opportunities for folks to submit proposals for sessions as well. And all of these are available on our website. So I will drop that in to the chat so you all can learn a bit more about these opportunities and register as well. So just drop that in. And before we get to our open Q&A session, this is the last thing, I promise. We would love for you all to fill out a very brief feedback survey around your experience today in the webinar. It should only take you about 30 seconds to fill out. And drop the link in the chat. Would really appreciate everyone's feedback on this, just in terms of what you thought of today's webinar. So I will give you all a couple seconds and let you all think about some questions that you have for our presenters. And this could be for either the Long Beach team, Dinuba, or even the Linked Learning Alliance staff as well. So I invite everyone to drop those in and fill out the survey. And so thank you all. Of course, yeah. We'll get to the Q&A in just a second as well. We'd love for folks to fill out the survey. And with that, I think we'll start bringing all of our presenters back to the sort of virtual stage of sorts and start spotlighting folks. And really invite anyone to drop your questions in the chat. Don't be shy, not all at once.
Or just unmute if there's not a stampede. So
Mhm. Any questions about anything? Anything that was discussed? Any questions at all?
I will note one thing. This isn't necessarily a question, but just listening to Renee and Carrie and contrasting that to Ramon and thinking about the size. I don't think this was intentional, but you know, Long Beach, one of the largest school districts in California, and then Dinuba, a small rural school district. And the ability to both sort of deliver on the same principles and vision, but in very different ways that reflect kind of the size, as well as makeups and characters of their communities. I think that's important for folks who are just thinking about this work, to note that and think about questions related to your context and the size of your district.
all right, I can't fill airspace here. I'll also just say, you know, looking at what Carrie and Renee shared and Ramon shared, it takes time. You know, this took multiple years, and it's definitely not a linear path. You know, and they're still doing work. I know, you know, Carrie and Renee are going to be at a master scheduling workshop with a bunch of their team, still working on master scheduling and trying to ensure that, you know, the schedules are really set up to support what the teachers and students are trying to do. So it's certainly a work in progress, and it's something that needs to be customized to your community and your district. So, and I think having it was intentional that we had two very different districts involved here today. So it can work in a large urban district and can also work in a more rural community. So, but it is going to look different, and the path's going to be different. So that's part of the process of figuring out how this can kind of work with your goals in your community. All right, we'll give another minute of wait time or so, another minute or two, and then we're gonna let our panelists go back to their families and evening here in a minute. So if you're waiting or holding out, feel free to unmute, or if you're filling out that survey, we really appreciate that.
Maya, maybe we can screen share the contact information for the Alliance team, in case anyone wants to reach out. And as I mentioned in the chat, we will also be following up with a recording and links to all of the resources that we discussed and dropped in the chat. So it's all easily accessible for you all. So thank you all so much. We'll stick around for a couple more minutes in case anyone does have any questions. But for folks logging off, really appreciate you all joining us and hope that we catch you again at another event or opportunity.